October 2nd, when you were arrested on October 2nd of 2024, then can you explain how that occurred?
I was on my way to work. I was on my way to work when I got pulled over. I was being followed too close, and I tried to get out of their way. But when they got right behind me, I felt like I was getting ready to get pulled over, and I was like, well, maybe I was driving a little faster than I should have been. And then they pulled me over. Went through their necessary procedures. Told me I had a warrant for my arrest. I was a little shocked. And then they pulled me out of the car, handcuffed me, and put me in the back of the patrol car.
When they pulled you over and said you had a warrant for your arrest, at that point, did anyone tell you what that warrant was for, specifically?
No.
Okay. Did you know what it was for?
I had an idea.
What was your idea?
This situation that we're here today.
So it had been some years. When you say the situation, you're referring to the killing of Fabio Sementilli?
Yes.
Okay. In the intervening years, though, had anything, you ever had any problems with law enforcement from January of 2017 until the time that you were pulled over on October 2nd of 2024?
No, ma'am.
After they arrested you, they put you in a patrol car, and did they take you then to the Washington or the Vancouver Police Department?
Yes, ma'am.
When you got there, then were you given the opportunity to speak to some detectives?
Yes, ma'am.
Are they right here in court, Detectives Byers and Farrell?
Yes, ma'am.
Did they put you into then a cell, locked into a cell with another person inside?
Yes, ma'am.
Did that person appear to you to be an inmate, or I should say somebody that, when I say inmate, somebody that also is in custody?
Yes, ma'am.
Did he introduce himself as Willie Boyd?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you kind of tell us what occurred when you first got into the cell, how you met this individual inside?
He kept talking to me. I didn't want to talk to nobody.
And what was he talking about?
His situation. Talked about how cold it was in there. Asked me what I was in for. I didn't want to talk to nobody.
And what's going through your head at this time?
A lot of shame. Lots of shame. But I also don't know. Divorce, lost a job, disappointment from my mentees, how many people I hurt because of this. Just a lot. A lot to process.
Okay. And as you're absorbing this, somebody's trying to talk to you, so did you know at that time that it was an undercover person that was placed there by the detectives?
No, not at the time.
At some point then, did Detective Farrell come to the door of the cell that you're in and tell you for the first time that it was a warrant for a homicide out of Los Angeles?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you know what he was talking about at that time then?
Everything kind of started coming back to me. I had forgotten a lot up until that point.
Do you remember what Detective Farrell told you at the very beginning?
Mr. Austin, look, you seem like a nice guy. You know why you're here. It's very important that you be very honest with us. And then I remember him showing me the pictures. He said, we know you were there, so you need to be honest with us.
What pictures did he show you?
He showed me pictures of Mr. Baker and myself jogging, and a black Porsche.
You recognized yourself in the photo jogging?
I did.
Exhibit 19, and I'm not saying this exhibit, but is that the photo or a copy of the photo that Detective Farrell showed you?
Yes, ma'am.
The person in the front right here in the green, who is that?
That's Mr. Baker.
And the person in the back with the hood, the darker hood, who is that?
That is myself.
So when he showed you that photograph, you recognized it?
Yeah.
How did you recognize that? From what?
Oh, I recognized it from the green sweatshirt first. And then all of LA has red curves. So that's what I recognized from it, about it.
Well, did you recognize it from being in a particular location?
Yes.
Where was this?
Los Angeles?
Okay, I guess my question is, tell us at this point, what are you guys doing right here?
We are on the way up to jog to the victim's house.
And do you have a knife at this point?
I did.
To your knowledge, does Baker have a knife at this point?
He did.
And what were you going up to the victim's house to do at this time?
It's on our way up to, he's on our way up to her, to kill him. To kill him.
Kill him?
Yes.
We'll go through that in a moment. Exhibit 19 also, this is page 9 in the corner. The first one was page 7 in the corner on exhibit 19. This Porsche, is this a photo that Detective Farrell showed you as well when you said a Porsche?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What's depicted here? Did you ride in that Porsche?
Yes, ma'am.
Seeing that photo right there, are you in that car at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
Where were you seated?
In the passenger seat with my head down.
Who was driving the car?
Mr. Baker.
And when is this in time? What's happening here?
He's driving away.
Away from what?
On murder. He's driving away from a murder scene.
This is when you both left?
Yes.
After Detective Farrell showed you those photographs then, did you remain in the cell to think about what he had just shown you?
Yes.
Did you then talk to your cellmate at that point about anything?
A little bit.
What did you tell him? Or what did you say?
He asked me, he started asking me a barrage of questions. And then he asked me was I was there, and I was like, yeah, I was there. And then he encouraged me to tell him the truth. And he asked me if I had a record. I was like, no. And then I remember saying, none of that matters. None of the work that I did matters.
Did he ask you if you recall about any of the other people involved in this?
Yeah, he asked me, but I didn't want to say too much because I didn't know I didn't know why he was asking me so many questions. He was trying to be my friend or something like this. It's not a situation we need to be friends about. I remember saying that, I was there, and he was like, who's the other dude? And told him who he was.
Who did you tell him it was?
Mr. Baker.
Well, do you know if you used that name at the time?
I used the I told him my uncle. He's like, that's your uncle? I was like, well, not biological, but.
So at this point, Detective Farrell has only come to the jail or the cell door, showed you these photographs, and now things are racing through your head, right?
Yes.
You have not had a chance to sit down and interview with the detectives at this point, right?
No.
So up until this point with your cellmate, you've admitted that you were involved in it, but that's the extent of it.
Yes.
And you were talking about you didn't want to talk too much at this point. Why did you feel you didn't want to talk too much at this point?
Because I felt like the detectives were about to ask me a bunch of questions that I had to try to figure out how to remember after so long.
So once
I didn't want to talk to him too much anymore.
I'm sorry?
I didn't want to talk to him anymore.
Your cellmate?
Yes.
So then at some point, did Detective Farrell come and actually take you out of the cell and take you into an interview room with him and Detective Byers?
That is correct.
Do you know if that was recorded?
Yes, I believe it was.
Did you end up waiving, or did they advise you of your Miranda rights?
They did.
And did you agree to talk to them?
I did.
Why did you want to talk to them?
It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. I feel like you come pick me up on my way to work. You know something, so there's no point in playing around with them anymore.
Okay. Did they ask you first? I'm going to give you some topics. Did they ask you anything about burner phones?
They did.
And what did you tell them?
I told them I had one at one point.
When did you have a burner phone?
In 2017.
And did you also go through then the facts of what occurred that day on January 23rd, 2017?
We did.
They asked you a lot of questions, you answered?
I did.
Did you tell them the whole truth during that interview?
Not entirely.
What was not the truth?
Just the details of it.
Why didn't you tell them everything at that point?
Because I felt like I felt like I said too much. I needed an attorney.
So at a certain point, you interviewed with them for a while, right?
I did.
Did you tell them that you're actually involved in the actual killing of Fabio Sementilli?
I did.
Did you tell them what your role was as far as participating in the crime?
I did.
What did you tell them?
I told them I was there. I told them that I helped. I told them that I stabbed him once. That I stabbed him once. That's what I told him.
So you admitted your role in the crime, and then, but at this point, you didn't give every detail. Is that fair?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you put back in the cell then with that undercover agent?
I was.
And did you start talking to him now?
Yeah.
Why did you start talking to him now?
I told it. Because I told the detectives the truth. And then I started just thinking about my life, not being able to. I started thinking about just all the harm that I caused the family. I was in disbelief. And I was frustrated, and I just wanted to talk about something different.
When you're talking to this person now, when you've been back in the cell after you interview with the detectives, at any point did you realize he was an undercover agent put in there by the detectives?
Not till they took me to jail. I replayed everything, and that's when I realized he was undercover, or might have been. He left shortly after. That's when I realized.
While you were in the cell with him then, after the interview then, did you feel comfortable then talking to him a little bit more since you had now interviewed with the detectives?
Thorough.
Comfortable is a strong word. I just felt the need to just talk to somebody. It's just in my nature to have a conversation.
Did he ask you about, and again, is he asking you questions about the crime?
Yeah.
Did he ask you how the victim died?
Yeah.
What'd you tell him?
I told him what I told the detectives.
What is that?
That he was stabbed.
Did he ask you if you stabbed him?
He did.
What'd you tell him?
Once.
Did he ask you who stabbed him the rest of the times?
Yeah.
What'd you tell him?
I told him, Baker stabbed him.
Now, did you tell him what the plan was from the beginning?
I believe so.
What did you tell him?
I believe he was told I was told that he was supposed to go rough him up, but that didn't happen.
Okay. But was that the plan?
No.
What was the plan?
Plan was to have him killed.
When you told your cellmate the plan was to go rough him up, then why didn't you tell your cellmate what the real plan was? Why did you lighten the story, let's say?
Well, a total stranger be telling my skeletons to. Didn't want to.
Did you tell them who was involved, this cellmate? Did you tell him who was involved in it, or did he ask you who was involved in this?
He asked. I remember him asking a lot of questions.
Okay. What did you tell him?
I told him Baker and the woman he was messing with was involved.
The woman he was messing with, do you see her in court?
Yes.
Can you please identify where she's sitting and what she's wearing?
To my far right, white blouse, gray suit.
Indicating the defendant.
And we'll get to the defendant in a moment, but you told him the woman he was messing with and him planned it. What else did you tell him about that?
I told him.
I don't know, counsel.
In the cell with the Perkins agent, the undercover agent, what else did you tell him?
I told him some money is supposed to be involved. She was supposed to get a lot of money if we did it. Excuse me. Sorry.
Did you specifically mention at this time to that undercover agent that it was actually insurance money?
I did.
Thorough.
I'm sorry?
I did.
How did you know about that?
Baker told me about it.
What did Baker tell you about it?
Baker told me she's loaded. She wants him gone. She's gonna get paid.
The
Sorry.
detectives, they never asked you about insurance money, right? During the first interview.
Sustained?
Did the detectives ever ask you about insurance money during the first interview?
No.
So this was something that you freely volunteered to the undercover agent the day you were arrested?
Yes.
It's overruled.
Okay. Did the agent say to you, to me it sounded like it's you planned everything? Do you remember him saying that to you?
Yeah.
What'd you say?
She knew about it. She did.
When did you find out about the insurance money? Baker told you about it. When did you find out about it?
After or before.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that. After and before?
It's after, before.
Was that before you came to Los Angeles to commit the murder?
Yes.
Do you recall how it happened? How you found out?
It was a phone call. It was a phone call. I remember Baker saying she's gonna come into some money. He tried to get me to come down earlier and I couldn't. I was working, so I couldn't do it. I was trying to avoid it, so I didn't think he would worry about it anymore.
What year and month was this, if you remember this conversation?
Maybe December, around the December time.
Of 2016?
2016.
All right. While you're in this cell then, you talked about money. Did you tell the agent if you were promised any money or any reward for doing this?
I don't think so. Did I?
Did you ever talk about receiving any gold coins?
Overruled.
I think I told him he gave me some coins.
Who gave you coins?
Baker gave me coins.
Was that gold coins?
That is correct.
When did he give them to you?
He gave them to me just before I got out at the bus station.
After
and
the murder, but before you flew home?
Yes.
And then again, this is still while you're in the cell with the undercover agent, did you tell him then that you left right after?
Yes.
What did you tell him about leaving the scene? And this is what you recall telling the agent about leaving the scene after the murder had been committed.
I remember telling him it happened and I had to get up out of there. And Baker dropped me off at the the bus station to catch it right back to the airport, and I flew back.
And did you tell this undercover agent that when you left after the murder, you left in that Porsche?
Yeah. We left in the Porsche.